Okay,
All
cool.
right.
So, you got a lot going on. You're involved in a lot of stuff. BFRO, I believe. I
Hmm.
don't know where you want to start. How about giving us and the listeners a little bit of bio and background about yourself when it comes to the cryptid and Bigfoot world?
Okay. Well, it all started about 20 years ago. I was kind of going through a rough patch in my first marriage, and in order to take myself out of my own head, I started getting out in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. That's where I'm located, and exploring the outdoors, and also getting onto the BFRO's website and checking out, sightings that they have listed in the area. And I was shocked to find out that there was actually Bigfoot in the, New Jersey. So I was on the blue board. They had a blue board back there, and when you could, chat with other people and investigators, and met a few individuals. We started communicating and compared notes, and kind of went from there. And then I attended my first expedition in 2008 out in Northwest PA. We call that the and what is it? The PNW, Pennsylvania Northwest. And that's where I got the bug on a BFRO expedition. So I've been involved with them for quite some time now. I became an investigator in 2009, and then in 2014 they were filming, the Finding Bigfoot show in New Jersey, and they contacted me, and we helped them produce it and get them witnesses, and I participated as well. And then they came back and did a North Jersey episode, and I wound up having the first expedition up there. And it was like a private one, though, not a public one. And we had Matt come out with us on Saturday night. We actually recorded some pretty cool howls, and I've been doing them ever since.
Very cool, man.
I
Northwest
always
Pennsylvania.
like to say, by day I'm a nutritional consultant and health food store owner, and by night I'm a Bigfoot researcher
That's awesome. Well, you're always a Bigfoot researcher all day long, right?
all day.
You do the other thing part time, right? But no,
Seems like it.
the northwest part of Pennsylvania, yeah, that's a very populated area for sightings. In Ohio, you reach over into like Conneaut and Youngstown and all that stuff.
Right.
Just south of Erie, Pennsylvania. Is that where you're talking about? That kind of area right
Actually,
there?
no, we're talking the Allegheny, which is the northwestern part, down by southeast of Erie, PA.
Okay,
So Warren
gotcha.
County.
Yep. Okay, gotcha.
Hmm.
So why don't you just take us into your encounter and tell us what you saw and what happened to you?
Well, the first time was actually at the expedition. I met Todd Prescott, who's been doing this longer than I have. He's from Ontario, Canada, and I was there. I got there a day early, set up camp, and I was at the camp office. They had T-shirts, for the Jacob photos. I don't know if you remember Rick and Tom Jacobs. They got that juvenile, you know, Sasquatch allegedly on the trail cam. So I was buying a shirt, and in walks Todd, looking all disheveled. He was actually out the night before down by where the photos were taken, and we met and decided to kind of camp near one another, and just started learning from him. He's been my mentor actually for a long time, and well, we had some activity then actually, so it was a pretty cool expedition. Kind of branched off on our own. We had another guy, Tom from Ohio, come join us, so the three of us kind of connected and made our own little group. um, First night, really not too much activity. We actually had pulled up our tent stakes because Chip and his crew from New York said that they had their eyes on that particular site. So Todd was gracious enough to say, "Okay, we'll move." So we moved, but where we wound up had a lot of bear sign, scat and stuff. And our belief is where there's a lot of bear, there's not typically a lot of Bigfoot because they're both apex predators. Um, but then the next night we kind of went a little further west, down by the Kinzua Dam and up on a ridge, and wound up getting some knocks, which were pretty cool. It's a long story. I don't know if you want to hear it, but it's kind of funny at the same time. We were kind of like preparing dinner, and we had a thermal camera set up on the hood of my truck. So we're just keeping an eye on the monitor, and we see a target show up on it. So Todd goes out, and after he walks out about 50 yards, it kind of disappears. So he comes back in. We continue cooking, comes back on again. So this time Tom goes out, and Tom was wearing like, you know, um, the night vision goggles, right? Not thermals, just night vision. He gets out about 100 yards, and I'm on a radio, but I'm a newbie, so I had it on the wrong channel, right? And this thing's on his right, so I'm going, it's on your right, it's on your right. And Todd's looking through the therm, and it stands up. And so Todd radios him and says, it's on your right, and it just stood up. And Tom goes into a crouched position. He pulls out a gun. We didn't even know he had a gun. And he's spinning around. He can't see it through his night vision. And then we realize it's a deer. So Todd radios him and says, it's just a deer. Don't worry. Come on back. So the deer walks off. And we're kind of like, relieved that it's nothing dangerous or threatening. So Todd and I are kind of cracking up. And Tom comes walking back into the camp and says, I don't think it's very funny. I don't think it's very funny at all. I might think it's funny tomorrow, but right now I don't think it's very funny. So I couldn't help it. I broke out laughing even, louder from that. So after we got done eating, I felt bad. So I kind of grabbed like a roll of TP and I said, well, it's my turn to go out in the woods. So I get out there and I'm pretty sure they're going to mess with me. And I urinate on a tree, and then I walk to my right. And obviously they're watching on therm, so they see this heat signature on the left, and they see a bigger one on the right. They're yelling, "There's something on your right!" I went, "Huh? There's something on your right!" So I look down. All I have on is a red headlamp. That's it. I pick up a branch from the ground. I see a stump in front of me. I start beating this stump with the branch to a pulp. And I get done, and up on the hillside up ahead in front of me, I hear a single, right? A wood knock. And I look up and I said, that was a knock. But it was just a single knock. That means don't come any closer, right? So I turn and I say, I got a knock. I'm about 200 yards in. Huh? I got a knock. So I'm thinking, I'm gonna head back to base camp. And I get back there and I tell them I got a knock. They're kind of, skeptical. They don't believe me. But I had a digital recorder in my top pocket. And so I pull out my digital recorder, and sure enough, I had it recorded. So at that point, Todd's like, Occam's razor guy. He wants to eliminate any variables. So now we have to hike up to the trail to make sure there's no campers in the area that may have possibly done a knock. So we wind up walking up there and wound up encountering a bear. We got huffed at by a bear. And then we kind of split up a little bit, did some back and forth provocations, and got another knock. So that was fairly, decent, activity for the night. So we're like, well, when we go to the base camp meeting in the morning, let's not say anything about our knocks. We don't want everybody coming over to our neck of the woods. But it turns out that this guy Chip from New York and his crew had a thermal sighting at the campsite where we would have been, only they didn't have recording capability. So we're like, yeah, we got a couple of knocks. No big deal. And so, the next night we hooked up with another guy, another BFRO investigator from North Jersey, Big Mike, and his crew was down below from us in the ridge, and we did some back and forth things there. Had some, decent activity. And then the final night, that was the final night actually. So Sunday morning, the expedition ends, everybody's leaving. Todd and I decide to stay an extra day, and we head back to Camp Chip. And we just set up there, set up two tents about 50 feet away from one another. We hiked all, through the woods, a few hours until the wee hours of the morning. We get back to camp around 4:15 in the morning. And Todd says, get in your tent and hope for the best. So as I'm getting in my tent, he radios me and says, hey, I just heard a scream from the swamp. Come back out. So we get back out. We walk down the road, therm the swamp, nothing. Head back to camp. He says, all right, say a prayer, hope for the best. So I literally, I said a prayer, and not 5 minutes later, I hear footfalls coming down from over the berm from where the road is. And I could feel them as well as hear them. And this thing comes around. I'm laying on my back in my tent, comes around to where my head is. I can see a little bit of a silhouette because the moon is still kind of up and the sun is just about to come up. And it crouches down. It takes a deep breath in. It goes, and then it presses its hand right over my head. Like I'm looking up and my heart's pounding in my chest. So I click my radio 3 times. I don't want to scare the poor thing. And no response from Todd. Just then I hear what sounds like an approaching vehicle, and we were on one of these, like it was like the gas lines. So it was like a road that the gas line is on. It was like a 90-degree turn right there before our camp, and something was coming up, and just before it would have rounded this turn and illuminated the individual that was crouched down, it stood up and tore through camp over the fire ring. You could hear it on 2 legs. It was bipedal, and it took off. The vehicle went past. A few seconds or maybe a minute later, I hear what sounds like some equipment starting up, and I'm thinking maybe this was a worker coming to work on the gas line. I click my radio again 3 times, no response. And at this point, the adrenaline's pretty high. Then Todd comes back on the radio. You all right over there? I said, were you walking around outside my tent? He goes, no, I wasn't walking around outside your tent. So I explained to him, what went down. And very shortly after that, I passed out. I mean, from not only lack of sleep, but, I think the adrenaline rush. Well, he informed me the next morning when I woke up at 10 a.m., he said he came back into camp and he tried unzipping his flap of his tent and getting his therm out on the monopad, but he couldn't get it up high enough over the dome of the tent because it came through the center of the campground. So he didn't get it on therm. Both of us had digital recorders running. His was in a center of campsite. Mine was tucked into the flap of my tent aimed at the game trail. And neither one of us, when we went home and reviewed the audio, neither one of us had any of these sounds on there. So I kind of call it the curse of the Sasquatch. So that was pretty exciting. First time on an expedition. I felt like I learned a lot, got to play with some toys like the therms and the night vision and all that cool gear. 2 weeks later, Paul was having another expedition, a follow-up one, and Todd and I weren't able to attend due to our schedules. So he and I decided to come back 3 weeks, a week after that, 3 weeks after the original. And it's funny because I showed up about 5 minutes after he got there. And just as I got out of my car, it sounded like a tree falls over. And I look at him and I said, they're here. And on that occasion, we just pretended to be campers, figuring that it was, pretty squashed out after 2 expeditions. However, there was another campsite that was around that bend that was having like a rave going on with lights, and they had dogs and music blasting. So they kind of outshined us as far as, an attractant to the locals, I guess. But we did a couple of, cool hikes down by where the Jacobs photos were taken. And Todd radioed me. He was further down the ridge from where I was at. And he radios me and says, try doing a knock. So picked up a branch and I did a knock. I held up my digital recorder up into the air. And sure enough, from up on the hillside above me, I got a single response. And I radioed him. I said, I got a response. He goes, copy that. I heard it. So, of course, we had to hike up the hill to make sure there was nobody there that made the knock, rule out any variables. So that was kind of cool. So, pretty much that was the beginning of my squatching career. The following year, I wound up going out to the Pacific Northwest, to British Columbia, Sunshine Coast, on an expedition. And that's where I saw my first Bigfoot. But we had activity every day. So it was really cool. I mean, a lot of great people, real primitive campsite. And we had rocks during the first I was again early to the expedition. So the first night I show up, I had to take the trolley, I had to take the bus, the ferry, and then Rob, the organizer, picked me up at the ferry and drove me into camp. It was just he and I, and there was like a camper there, and he was staying in the main bedroom, and there was a cot down at the other end in the kitchen area. And he says, "You're that's your spot." He goes, "Leave the door open." I'm like, "What are you nuts?" There's bear out there. Yeah. it's, it's British Columbia, but I closed the screen, right? So yeah, the first night that we were there, the girls were doing a little hike with their red LEDs on around base camp. And when they got back from up on the hillside in front of me, we had a power knock that sounded like artillery fire. And I'm sitting in my camp chair, and I went, "Oh my god!" And Rob grabs the baseball bat and goes to the knocking tree, and I'm thinking, "Wait, don't respond." But he did, and then after that, nothing, But that was the first time I heard a power knock. Wasn't the last time. We heard many more that expedition. And again, I got hit right here with a pebble. Can't see because of my microphone. Right here, and I was sitting at base camp. I had a rock thrown at me, and all the people were over by the picnic table looking at Neil's computer at his orb pictures. And I said, "Hey, did somebody throw a rock?" And they said, No, we didn't throw any rocks. And then there was a lot of activity on that week. On that week that I was there, it was crazy. On the final morning I was there, everybody had left. It was just me and Rob. He was up at base camp. I had gone down into the ravine by the waterfall, and it was a drought, so the waterfall wasn't active. But it was. I was down on a down tree, and I said my affirmations and my prayers, and I look up, and up on the hillside in front of me, I see an individual, a head and shoulders of an auburn colored individual. And I went, "Whoa, that wasn't there a moment ago." And I had a digital camera with me in my left hand, and I zoomed in and I took a picture. And I remembered somebody saying, "Oh, if you turn around and take pictures over your shoulder, you might get them standing up and walking away." So I tried doing that, turned around, it was gone. And I kind of kicked myself now for not watching it longer, because it was just a real brief sighting. But you couldn't see the body, just the head and shoulders. You could see the face. And I took a comparison photo. And then I went back up to the hillside to the base camp, and I told Rob, I said, "I think I saw a Sasquatch." So I put my SD card in his laptop, and we did the before and after. And he says, "Yeah, I think you saw a Sasquatch." But, it's blurry, right? You can see the eye sockets. You can see there's no hair on the cheeks, and you can see the mouth, but it's blurry. So after I got back from there, I wound up, becoming an investigator with the BFRO. I started doing follow-ups and investigating reports on our flats, the field logging and tracking system that they have, which is great. You get to talk to witnesses, you get out there and do the follow-up, check out where they actually had the encounters, and hopefully get, scientific research to back up what's going on, you know. So that's just the beginning. But if you have any questions, I got more tales. You're muted.
Sorry.
That's all
How
right.
far away were you from the creature, did you say?
I
And
would say about
can
70
you describe
yards.
the facial features at all?
Really, no. I didn't look at it long enough. That's the thing. I can kick myself now for so quickly thinking I could take a picture of it walking away. But no, like I said, I wouldn't be able to describe any facial features. I wasn't close enough, first of all. The following year, though, when I got back to New Jersey, I was doing research out in the Pine Barrens as well, and I was with a friend of mine, and she was a Jersey Devil enthusiast. We actually went out to one of my areas, up to Bear Swamp Hill Tower Road. So it's a higher elevation. The Pinelands are very flat here in South Jersey, but there's a couple of higher elevations where they have fire towers. Where this one was, the fire tower was gone. So we're up there. It's in March. It's March 17th, St. Patty's Day, actually. And it's kind of drizzly and cold. Did our usual thing with trying to do some provocations. Finally said, let's wrap it up around 12:30, 12:45, head back home. And we're heading back into civilization, just listening to tunes on the radio, not talking about Bigfoot. And this individual tore out from a development from a trail that has chain link fence on both sides. It tore out in front of my vehicle. I must have been doing almost 50 miles an hour. And I slammed on the brakes. She slid forward. She had a bottle of water between her knees. It sprayed all over her. And she went, "What the F was that?" I went, "Deer?" She goes, "No, it wasn't." That's the first thing your mind wraps around, especially in the forest. So I wound up turning around, and there was actually a dead deer in the road a little further up in the middle of the road. I turned around and I headed back up, and I got out to see if I could hear anything, running through the forest, or if I could see any impressions on the ground. It was too hard packed. But where this individual came out of and the trajectory it was running at, it would have gone through an actual customer's yard of mine, because their home borders this power lines, high tension power line. And that's like a squatch highway. I think animals and squatches use it to travel easier at night, especially. And so that was pretty exciting. Again, happened like that. Um, it was running on two legs and using its arms to propel itself. It must have been like 3, 4 feet in front of my vehicle by the time I narrowly avoided hitting it, and hunched over. I was in my Oldsmobile at the time. Um, Hunched over, it was 3.5, 4 feet over the hood of my car. So that puts it about 6.5, 7 feet tall. And it was like a strawberry blondish individual. Okay, the hair color. Again, no muzzle, no pointy ears, no antlers, no tail. You know what I mean? So I know what it wasn't. And if it was a guy in a costume, he'd be toast. You know what I mean? Because there's no way he ran fast enough. In fact, when we did my reenactment for Finding Bigfoot, and Bobo ran out, he's like, I said, "So you're gonna run out of my car, in front of my car, when I'm doing 50 miles an hour?" He goes, "That ain't happening." But yeah, that was pretty cool. That was right after the. It was actually 2010. Forgive me, I might have said 2009. That was March 18th, 2010. So that was 16 years ago. Just the anniversary of that just went by, and I was out in the woods to celebrate.
We'll have to look that episode up and check it out. I don't know
It's
what
called
season it
South
would be.
Jersey Sasquatch. It's
Okay,
season
might be on
5.
YouTube. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll check it out. What do you
So,
think
like I
about?
said, we helped
Yeah,
them
go
make
ahead.
that episode. Took
Yeah,
them all the spots, introduced them to witnesses. We helped them, get to other spots. They handed me a radio, said, "Lead the crew out to here. Show us where to film this segment for Phil, the poacher guy." We did a campfire thing where they brought out a cooler with beers, and Bilbo made s'mores for everybody. It's a lot of fun, but it's not like real research. Of course, the producers kind of dictate what goes on, and they're all traipsing around with audio and lights on and stuff. It's you're not going to get any activity doing it that way.
it's all for the show, isn't it?
Exactly.
But there is the concept. I mean, honestly, there's the
Ah,
concept there. I mean, had it not be for Bigfoot, they wouldn't have those shows, right?
no doubt.
Maybe it'd be something else. What's your thoughts about the Jersey Devil, though? Let's talk about
Ah,
that. You're on the Pine Barrens, or you grew up around the Pine Barrens. Is that a real creature? Do you believe in that creature? Do you think what's your thoughts on that?
I always I always piss off the locals when I talk about this, because my opinion is that the Jersey Devil is folklore. Started back in like early 1700s with I think her name was Kate Leeds, Katie, the mom, and she was having her 13th child, and she cursed it, and allegedly it flew up into the chimney after killing her midwife, and it's been terrorizing the locals ever since. But the truth is, how would that maintain all these years, right? Any kind of, I mean, it's a, what is it, a ghost? I don't know, right? But I call it folklore. And what's actually happening is people are having misidentification, and they're wrapping in their minds around the Jersey Devil legend by having encounters with Bigfoot in the forest. I mean, think about it. You got a 8 foot tall individual with long hair hanging down from their arms, right? Red glowing eyes, and it's screaming at them, flailing its arms. That could be misconstrued as a devilish type thing, right? Although you do hear reports of
Well,
people
yeah,
saying they see like a horse head and the tail and
right.
right the wings.
Yeah, but that how much is that is in their head because they're thinking, oh, that's what
Oh,
this
for
is.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the map of New Jersey with all our different cryptids behind me here from the guys Mark and Market, Weird New Jersey. I got a bar of Jersey Devil soap, right? Smells pretty good. Haven't used it yet.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, that's because I prefer to use Squatch Talks podcast.
Yes, tell
The
us about
Yeti
Squash
bars.
Talks. Tell us about that. Tell us about your podcast.
Well, some fellow researcher friends of mine. We were at a campground one night, and we were all BFRO investigators, and we were all in organizers. So we put on expeditions, and we decided, hey, you know what? Let's tell our stories instead of being like these typical channels like Dixie, my friend Cameron, like Dixie Cryptid or Nance over at Buckeye, just telling other people's stories. Let's tell our own stories. So the premise to the show is real researchers telling real stories and encounters. Okay. And it's funny because Cam said to us when he had us on the first time, he said, well, aren't you going to run out of stories? I was like, no, because we keep getting out, you know? So it's been like 4 or 5 years. My co-hosts have kind of bailed on me. So it's me and my wife, Heather. She'll join me from time to time, or we'll just do, things out in the forest with other people. We were out last night. That's why I'm a little subdued tonight. We were out until 1:30 last night in the woods because we were planning to go out anyway because we're getting ready to have an expedition in a few weeks in the forest for the BFRO. And so we were planning on going out to do some scouting, and I get a call at my shop yesterday from a young man who I know. It's a friend of one of my customers who's become a friend, ex-state trooper, ex-state park police. His son and his buddy. Um, he calls me. He says, "Yeah, he told me to call you. I was out camping 2 nights ago, and I was awakened by something, and I hear this loud whoop coming from across the bog from where I'm camped out in my transit van. He's sleeping in his van with the doors open in the back because he likes to look at the stars, and his dog's like laying on the ground outside. Um, and then he heard like a second and possibly a third one, right? So well, that's really interesting. Nothing to write home about, but interesting. So one of my team couldn't make it last night. So I said to the other guy, I said, hey, why don't we go check out this location where this individual had possible activity? It's within a mile or two of where there's been recent activity. Another couple had some activity where they heard whoops and branch snaps. This was a few weeks ago. That was a recent episode I put on my podcast. And they're naturalists. They work for Pinelands Adventures, and they're always out in the forest. The one guy's a biologist, you know what I mean? So they know the sounds of the forest. But anyway, this young guy is out there. So I thought it was interesting enough to check out. So we all hop in my truck and we head out there. We set up a little base camp. We're sitting around. And about an hour goes by. I see lights approaching, coming up the trail. We're like, who's this? Turns out it's a transit van. And the guy's got his window. I said, Dan? And sure enough, it was the guy who had the experience a couple of nights earlier, and his dog Max. So he stops. I introduce him to the others, and he goes up where he was parked. So he actually went and parked exactly. We were real close from just where he described where he was. I was within 100 feet of where he actually had this experience. And so he parked exactly where he was. We went back up there. I briefly filmed a little interview with him. And then he came back and hung out with us at base camp. We let him use our thermal imagers and stuff, and taught him a little about how we go about doing what we do, And again, where we were set up, there was a lot of carpenter frogs and a lot of peepers, It was a lot of outside noises. So it makes it tough to really hear anything. I thought at one point we had a thermal hit kind of far off to the right at the it's on the like a sleeper branch of the river, you know what I mean? So it's really marshy. But I wouldn't be able to say for sure. I do have it recorded on my therm, but it wasn't moving, so it's probably just a hot tree trunk or something, But But yeah, it's always fun to get out. And since, like I said, since it was recent to when he possibly had some activity, we thought it would be pretty cool to check it out. So, you know, it's all, hey, we say a bad night squatching beats a good day working.
Ain't that right? For sure. What's your thoughts about Dogman?
Yeah, I don't have much thoughts about it except that I really wouldn't want to encounter one. They seem a lot more aggressive and scary. Like, I'm not scared of running into a Bigfoot when I'm in the forest. I've been out by myself many times solo hiking, and I've never, I mean, I've gotten growled at, don't get me wrong. There was one experience right around the time when I had my road crossing. I went out to put out some apples in a trail camera on Thanksgiving morning, and it had snowed overnight. So I wanted to go look for tracks, and I went down by abandoned railroad tracks near, again, another fire tower, Apple Pie Hill. And I parked my Oldsmobile and I hike in about a mile down to the tracks. And I'm hiking down alongside the tracks. And I might have done a little thing that might have been like a male dominance thing, like I urinated on a tree. You know what I mean? And I was like, hey, whose territory is it now? Squatches, it's one of my trademarks. And then I had a child's baseball bat with me. And I saw a stump, and I did 3 knocks on a stump. And from behind me on the right came a growl so loud, it vibrated my right ear. And I turned and went, oh, and it growled again. And I went, oh, a second time. And I'm like thinking, oh, great. I'm like 2 miles from my car. I got a child's baseball bat for defense. I said, hello, how are you? I'm like, I can't see where the hell. And it's like the leaves are off the trees. There's pine trees, the sheep sorrel. I cannot see where this sound is coming from. So now I'm facing where it came from. I said, does this mean you don't want me here? So this is like 5 growls now. I said, okay, I'm leaving. And I turned and I went across the tracks. And a little elevation there. And turned and waved and got back down to the other trail. And then I took that to where I was going back to my car. And on that trail, there's like a choke point where it's marshy. And I'm thinking, oh, great. I got to go through there, and it's going to grab me through the bush and pull me in, But I made it through. I'm heading up the trail, and on my right, I see a game trail, and it's going into a grove of mountain laurel. And I really think like mountain laurel is something they like a lot because it's very good ground cover. They might use it for like a nursery area, while they're foraging or whatever. So I hike through the mountain laurel on the game trail. I come out on a clearing, and in the clearing, it's snow covered. There's a line of tracks, tightrope fashion, about 12 inches long, nothing huge, but you can see the toe impressions. It had gotten snowed over because it snowed overnight. So you could see the toe impressions, but it wasn't worth, taking photos of. And like I said, it was only about 12 inches long. And they led across the clearing. And at the end of the clearing was an arch, a tree, arched. There was a tree broken off about 5-6 inches in diameter, about 5 feet up, and an X tree formation, almost as if to say, don't come any further, So I said, wow, this is a good place to put a trail camera. So I did. I put out my trail camera. I put out some apples, and I had a can of Alpo dog stew. So I pulled the tab on it, and I put it on top of the tree that was broken off, and then I hiked back out to my car. So half hour after getting growled at. So, hey, it's just one thing after the next. That was, like I said, 2010. 2014 is when I started doing the expeditions. And on the first public expedition here in the Pine Barrens, we actually had tracks. One of my attendees radioed me early Saturday morning. It had rained overnight on Friday. And he radios me and he says, hey, I think I found an impression. So he was this big one behind me here. Okay. It was really deep because what I believe happened is there was a creek near base camp and a bridge that, went underneath it when, near a spot where people would put in kayaks and canoes. However, it was, like I said, early Saturday morning. I go down thinking it's a misidentification, and I'm looking at it, and I'm crouched down, and I look to my left, and under this blueberry bush to my left, I see another impression. I said, oh, and here's another one. I said, that's great. I was going to do a track casting demo today. Now we have real ones. So as I'm making the cast, a couple of the attendees from Connecticut hiked across the bridge and upstream, actually downstream, further downstream, and there was like a area of really dark mud, like a peninsula of dark mud. They found 18 juvenile track impressions, two different sizes, like 8 inches and 8.5 inches. So what I'm thinking is it was probably an adult female with 2 juvies that had come through the area. And the reason the first impression was so deep is because she came down the embankment by the bridge, probably to avoid a passing motorist in the early morning hours, and slid and then stepped back with her other foot, to avoid detection. And the track I found was that one up there, and you can still see the leaves in it and everything. I'm not going to lift it off because, it's all glass back there. But I showed Jeff Meldrum. Dr. Meldrum thought it looked pretty good, actually. And may he rest in peace. He was a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, we had Jeff on our show too. Great dude,
Yeah,
man.
he's great.
Ran him
He's
a couple
great guest.
times at Salt Fork.
Yep.
Unfortunate that man passed away.
Yeah, we met at Salt Fork, and then again over here at the paranormal convention that my friend Michael O'Connor puts on. In fact,
Where's
that's
that
happening. That's actually going to be in Princeton this year. June 6th is the date, I believe. Yep. I won't be attending this year. I was actually one of his first speakers when he started about 4 years ago up at Kearney Cottage. Okay. But yeah, those are tracks from Jeff behind me. One of them is actually autographed, but I actually broke it.
Yeah, we bought a set from him too. We got a set of the cripple foot.
No, did you?
Casting, and the toe is broken off of the one that we have, or that I have.
I was making a mold, right? My friend Patrick was helping me make molds, and here's one. This is the Patty impression, okay, and that's Patty. Oh, Patty's up there actually on the top shelf, top
awesome.
Right.
Cool.
And that I got from Cliff at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference.
Oh yeah, we've met Cliff plenty of times.
Yeah.
We begged him to come on the show, but he's like, well, maybe one day. I'm like, I'm not going to ask you anymore, Cliff.
Yeah, I know I don't bother with asking him or Bobo. I had Matt on a couple of times.
I'd love to talk to Bobo. Never met him. Never talked to him.
Bobo's cool. Yeah, we've been out with him a few times, and actually at the conference at Ohio, he wasn't feeling good, so Heather and I drove over to a local Walmart so I could get him, because I'm a nutritionist. I got him some stuff to help him get better quicker.
Yeah, he went through some stuff. I know that he went through some health issues.
Definitely
some things. So yeah.
Well, we're not as young as we once were. I've been doing it, like I said, 20 years. I'm dealing with sciatica for the last 2 years, and it kind of impeded my activity. Not this past summer, the last summer, before that. I pushed through it this year, though. I wasn't going to let it stop me. But,
good for you, man. Well, so I have a question about the footsteps. You talked about how they're like in line, like just one
tightrope.
I've heard that before. I know Brian's heard that before. It seems to be a weird way that those creatures walk. Do you think that's common with these Bigfoot creatures? And why do you think they walk like that? You think it has something to do with the gliding movement?
It does. And if you've heard reports where like an individual is spotted walking and they like very smooth, very fluid. Okay. And the reason is that it's like their leg kind of like a hinge almost, I mean? Like they're not walking like we do, right, left, with our hips moving necessarily. Okay. It's almost as if their knee is kind of like almost unhinging, you know what I mean? And it's easier to describe when you're walking, but and Jeff, also goes along with that whole morphology with the foot and all that. But yeah, it's an interesting concept, and as I've said, the tracks that we found throughout the years, often the ones that are what I consider legitimate, are usually in tightrope fashion. I'm not saying you're not going to find sometimes two impressions side by side, because obviously they come to a stop and they stand there, you know. Um, but yeah, that's what I would think explains how they wind up having that tightrope.
I kind of
You
wondered
know,
that too because I knew somebody mentioned about the Patterson Gimlin film, how the way Patty walked. They thought maybe she had a hip issue or something wrong with her leg because she kind of looked like they thought she swung it from the outside to in.
well, there is a herniation on her right
But that
upper
makes
thigh.
sense though if they're walking
Mhm.
in a straight line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
Uh,
again, that's I'm saying
like
there's a
you said.
herniation on her right up thigh, because I believe Patty's real. Okay, I don't give a
Oh, we
crap
do
what
too,
these guys.
100%.
I don't
Yeah.
give
What
a
do you think
crap what
about
these guys are claiming.
this latest thing? Actually, the documentary should have came out yesterday as we talk right now
Right?
on 417, right?
I
Is it
I
out
heard something.
there?
Well,
I want to watch it because I'm interested. But
obviously, we want to watch it, right?
I
I
know
talked to
what I
Todd
saw.
about it.
I know that film is real. There's no
Todd Prescott was on one of the parrot, the podcast that was talking about it with Tom Skeens. I always get his name wrong. He's from BC, and a couple of the guys, and that Eric Palacio guy, right, who was attending the screening at the Southwest Film Festival. Um, I don't know. Todd was kind of thinking that it possibly could have been hoaxed. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? I don't think so. I really don't. I think, Bob Gimlin's a decent guy, honorable guy. I think he may have said to Bob or to, Roger on his deathbed that he would, you know, keep the stories consistent because he's an honorable guy, whatever. Um, but yeah, it just doesn't add up. You know what I mean? Bill Munns doesn't think it adds up. I honestly haven't followed it too much because that whole group of individuals are too crazy to deal with. So I try to stay away from the Bigfoot drama.
Yeah, with the costume though, it's funny because when you watch the Patterson Gimlin film, she has breasts. It's obvious
Hmm.
their breasts are there.
No doubt.
Even when they tried to prove that they filmed this with the costume, even the costume that they remade years later after the fact, even for this documentary, I believe, doesn't show the breasts that this creature has. At 7 years old, when Brian and I saw this, or I don't know, Brian, how old you were, we were probably about the same age. Uh, I knew it was real. I looked at
That's
my
what's
dad and I said, "What is that?"
that's what's kicked it off for me, guys. I mean, my dad took me to a theater in New York. I was 10 years old, I think, and we saw Sasquatch, the Legend of Bigfoot, which is this poster I have here, right? And I was scared to death. Didn't sleep for like a month. Keep thinking a hairy arm's going to come through the window and grab me, And there was no Bigfoot on Long Island, as far as I know. But that's what turned me on to the whole thing.
Why do you
Patty.
think it's so hard for people to not believe? I mean, these days there's so much out there about you talk about UFOs and the government says, okay, maybe we're not lying, and then it's like a big blow up. But this Bigfoot thing, we're pretty sure the government's covering it up. But when they stop denying it, do you think people are going to believe more? You think it's going to be more like alien things? I mean, there's
Well,
so many sightings out there, dude. They're every day. People are seeing these things. When we started this podcast, we were worried about getting guests after so many months because we thought, well, we're gonna get the people that saw them back in the 60s and 70s, 80s and 90s, but there's more sightings now that happened in the 2020s,
hmm
and every day that we're hearing, it's like they're not
how
stopping.
about those
They're
recent
getting bigger. They're
the
getting
rash of
bigger.
sightings in Ohio, and now I hear also in Ontario. There's been
Mm-hmm.
a rash of sightings, but now we get reports in all the time, and like I said, I get calls. People know me, that they know where I get people coming into the shop, and they're like, "No, I don't want to talk about nutrition. I want to tell you about what happened to me." One of my customers told me a story. We actually shot at one and hit it in the shoulder because it scared his wife. He has an 8-foot privacy fence in his backyard. And his wife went out to take out some compost or something at night, and this thing must have growled at her over the fence. So he went out and took a shot at it, and he felt bad afterwards, but it kind of just went, and turned and walked away, you know.
It's probably like a bee sting to it or something, you know.
Who knows? I don't know. But again, getting back to your question, though, do I think the government's hiding stuff? Yeah, I think they're probably not telling us everything, obviously, because look what it would do to the wood industry, the paper pulp industry, the forestry industry. I mean, you know, it would definitely cause quite a stir, not to mention the fact about what it would do to, you know, religious beliefs, you know, as far as creation and all that. So yeah, I mean, they're just letting little blips and blurbs out about the alien stuff now because they're just trying to placate us and distract us from what's not getting done in DC. You know, that's what I always say. They got to keep, you know, the sheeples distracted. But I don't know. I think the real question was, you know, are people going to believe? There's people that don't believe we just went around the moon. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So,
I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. We brought this up. We brought this up, and it's okay to disagree. We brought this up before. It's like if we went to the moon in 1969 and landed, why wouldn't we? Why would not we keep going there every year and building a space station? And maybe we have been. Maybe they're keeping it a secret.
Well,
But
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, if we're gonna shoot a rocket out there and just orbit the moon, we're checking something out. But why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we go back there? Why wouldn't you not land? There's no reason why you wouldn't. It's the closest planet you can get to. Why would you not? If you have the capabilities to get there, why would you not keep going back there? Even if it was desolate, even if it was dead, you would still keep going back there and giving your guys, giving humans an option to leave Earth and maybe have another planet to live on if something happened. And we all know this as human beings. So they're covering something up, or we just didn't go because we can't get there for some reason, is my thought.
It's an interesting idea.
I mean,
you know, I'm not in agreement with you. I believe we went to the moon. I was only 3 when we got there in '69. Why didn't we keep going back? Probably because of, you know, financial reasons. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, but obviously they're saying this is the goal now is to get back there, right, and take advantage of the rich minerals or whatever. Who knows? I don't know. It's, you know, I'd have to see proof as to why we didn't get there. You know.
It's just like, I mean, they say the Russians went there and everybody went there, but I don't know. It just seems weird to me. It really does.
We do have a space station.
And for us to, in 2026, to launch, what is it, Artemis 2 or something like that? Just to circle the moon. And it was such a big production. It's like, hey.
No, it's because NASA was involved.
We should just be landed on the moon. We should be
not SpaceX.
You know, but anyway, that's my thing. I'll get off that rant. But
I've seen on 2 occasions right up the street what I would consider extraterrestrial craft. Okay, I mean spacecraft. On 2 occasions at my old house up the block. The first time I was with a friend, we were just watching the Perseids meteor shower, and 2 charcoal colored objects flew over with kind of hexagonal in the front, round in the back, and it had a round disc on the bottom that was orange red, and it just pulsed. No sound, just pulsed. You know what I mean? And one was in front of the other about 1,000 feet up. And I turned to look at my buddy and I said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" He goes, "Yeah." You know? And that was one time. The other time I was walking my dog out by the pool, and I had to go underneath a rose trellis to get out to the pool area to get it ready. The guys were coming, I think, to close it up the next day. And we were, you know, coming back through the trellis, and 5 triangular lights in V formation flew right overhead, just above the house, which was a 2-story, you know, house, in a V formation. And literally I ducked, like it went right over the head, over the house, and I ran to go check the front of the house because there was a park across the street. I figured maybe I could see it. Didn't see anything. And I'm questioning what I saw. I'm walking back down my driveway, and it comes back again over the house. And I'm on the side of the house. It goes up and makes a left and goes straight up in the air and silent. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking that was not of this planet. You know, I remember rushing in and saying to my ex, "Hey, I just saw, a UFO," and it was like 1995. I'm thinking, and the internet was brand new. I start going online. I'm like, wait a minute, I just saw it. It wouldn't be on the internet. You know what I mean? So, but hey, that's something I've talked to other people too that believe, that there's other life forms out there beyond us. So, but getting back to Bigfoot.
Yeah, what do you think they're coming from different dimensions or something? Or we talk about aliens and Bigfoot and Dogman, all this stuff, and people
Sure.
see portals. I mean,
The Dogman thing, again, I never answered your question really. I said I'd rather not run into one, but there are reports where they talk about the snout and the canines and the pointy ears, the legs bent in the back like a canine, right? And a tail. I've never had any reports. One person sent me a report that they thought they saw one, but where they thought they saw it is a very populous area not far from here. And I seriously doubted she saw a Dogman. You know what I mean? Didn't describe really any details, just red glowing eyes, and she thought it was a Dogman. So personally, I think it's, again, like even with Michigan and all that, the Wisconsin Dogman, east of Bray Road. I personally think, again, it's like the Jersey Devil, misidentification. However, when people make those specific claims about, anatomical features, I have to say, but I don't really pay too much attention to that. As far as other things like you were just saying, I'm a flesh and blood guy for the most part. I believe that they are relic hominids. By that I mean that somewhere over the evolutionary change, it split off somewhere. Okay, they're highly intelligent individuals, and I really believe like they have the ability to even reason, so to speak, and have empathy qualities. However, people that I've spoken with and have met over the years, some believe that they can travel through different dimensions. They cloak and they go through portals. Again, I'm not the portal mindset. Okay, I don't believe they come out of UFOs, and they're not transported down from a UFO. And I had a guy from MUFON. He's one of my customers for many years, a general in the Air Force and a director of MUFON in this area, George Filer. He and I would have conversations about this, and he'd ask me about it, and I'd say, "No, George, they're just curious. They see something up in the sky, they come out and they look and they go, what is that?" But he insists that he gets in reports from people that said not only do they see a UFO, but they see Bigfoot, right? So I said, well, that I think explains what I just said. As far as cloaking goes, they are the hide and seek world champion. You know what I mean? They, with their hair coloring, especially around here, they can easily blend in very quickly. I mean, even when you see a deer run out in front of you, when you're going down one of these forest roads, you look to your right, you can't see it. It's gone. They blend in. They're very good at concealment. I've spoken to witnesses where they were getting escorted, let's say, out of the forest, okay? And a car might have been coming down the road, and the Bigfoot went down on flat on its belly, And again, that's an easy way not to be seen, especially if there's leaves on the ground, they blend in. So I just feel like that's mostly, and then, there's this people that say, "Oh, well, I was following tracks and then they just stopped." What happened to them, right? Well, they can leap 25 yards too, some of them, or they can leap up into a tree and then swing from tree to tree. These are my explanations. I'm not an expert. I don't think there's any experts out there, right? Until I have it on, 4K definitively. But I don't know. It's just like I said, I'm more of a flesh and blood guy. However, I'm open minded, and I have no problem speaking to people about this. And I've had strange paranormal experiences out on expeditions and in the forest that I can't explain, which has made me come to the point where I have to say there potentially could be something else going on, you know? And even Matt, the founder of the BFRO, who was always very staunch against any public reports involving paranormal or other types of, intradimensional type stuff, has somewhat come around to like saying, hey, you know what? Like you guys in Jersey, you can mention the Jersey Devil, you can talk about that stuff. We actually had an expedition a few years ago where I had access to private farmland, cranberry growers, and my customers, and nobody else was out there. And we had a couple of teams set up, and literally we were having we had mediums and we had some paranormal people on the teams with K2 meters and stuff, and I'm literally having a conversation with a spirit. The lights are just like full throttle, you know what I mean, responding to my questions. And at one point there was like this spooky music. You could hear it on my audio. It's like, ooh, ooh. It happened 3 times. Okay. And then a 4th time as we were packing up to leave to go to a different spot. So I just can't explain certain things like that. I was at a Pennsylvania expedition in 2021 in central southern PA. And we had recorded 3 howls that were phenomenal. We just got into a spot. The place we were supposed to set up was down below by a creek, not far off the road. So I got the team that was kind of out of shape. They didn't want to hike too much. And when we got to where we were supposed to be, I was like, nah, this isn't suitable. I said, come on, let's go up this trail. And the trail went up on an elevation, right? So they start hemming and hawing, and I was like, okay, let's stop here a moment, right? I open up my bag of peanut butter pretzels, and they fly over, and from across the ridge, the ravine, this howl was like the best howl I've ever heard. And I didn't even have my recorder going at that point. I quickly got my recorders on, both of them, and I was able to capture the 2nd and 3rd howls. And this is 5 minutes after we literally got up the trail, And so I was like, wow, that was quite a greeting, Guess we got what we came for. We can go home. But instead, I'm like, wow, we hung out a little while. I said, let's keep going a little further. And again, they started hemming and hawing about the hike. So I said, okay, we're going to do like a Pied Piper. I'm going to leave you here. We left 4 of them there, and then me and 2 other guys continued hiking up. We wanted to get to a clearing up at the top where they had found cast or track impressions the year before, right? So as soon as we left the group, we came upon this branch that was on the ground. It was like a Y-shaped branch with leaves on it. As soon as we crossed over that branch and the trail turned, it got like 10 degrees cooler. You could see your breath coming out of your mouth. The wind whipped up a little bit. You could no longer hear the river in the ravine below us. And we had like a time variant thing going on as well, okay? So we set up there, 2 teams, and I asked Patty down in the group below me to do one of her whoops. Couldn't hear her. I did a knock. They couldn't hear me. I did one of my howls, which were fairly loud. They couldn't hear me. It was kind of strange, that we were not able to communicate so well. And then I looked to my left, and like 7-8 feet off the ground, right across the trail from me, maybe 15 feet away, there's this bright, looks like a headlamp, just right there. And I'm like going like this, seeing if it's a star or if it's the moon, or maybe there's a trail runner, you know what I mean? Like the AT wasn't far from where we were. And then it just slowly sank down and extinguished. And as I turned to the 2 individuals I was with, Tony, who's LEO, big guy, he was sitting down in a camp chair, and he's like, whoa, you were talking about getting zapped earlier. Can you tell me about that? I was like, oh yeah, you might feel nauseous or dizzy or get a headache. He's like, I felt like I had 2 fingers pressing on my forehead to the point where I had to sit down. And Jeff and I both felt like our guts were twisted. So I don't know if I got zapped or not. Okay. But right there, that was the defining moment for me where I was like, something's going on, you know, beyond Bigfoot. So who knows? I'm open minded.
Experiences and oh my gosh, you can't hear me.
Now I can.
It was great having you on tonight, Eric, and talking to you about your experiences, man, and all
Cool.
that stuff. And it's cool that you're in the BFRO. It's great to know somebody in that, and where you're at, and the Pine Barrens. You know, there's a lot
Yeah.
of weird stuff going on there,
Yeah,
obviously.
there sure is.
But yeah, your podcast is Squatch Talks Podcast. Where can people check you out? Is that on YouTube? And
On YouTube, I got rid of the Spotify and the iTunes and all that for now. You know,
okay,
just keeping it simple, doing
sure,
the YouTube thing. We used to do a weekly
okay,
show. I'm just, putting them out there as we get them. I'm
yeah,
focusing more on quality rather than quantity.
I hear you. Yeah, it's
You
tough
know,
to put a weekly episode out there. We know that. So
yeah.
and a quality episode. So, but yeah, thanks again for being on the show, Eric. And anything
Thanks for
else
having
goes
me.
on and happens, reach out to us, brother.
We'll do.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks again.
Thanks for
Thanks,
squatching.
Eric.
Yes, sir. Take care.